morning, everyone. So let's get started. Welcome to this Founding Drug Development in China panel. I'm sure that this is a very interesting topic to the many of us. So we're very honored to have a very distinguished panel joining us today. So for this 1 hour session, we're going to start with a brief introduction of the panelists by themselves, one by one. And after that, we're going to have a set of pre-selected topics for the panelists to discuss. And then for the balance of the session, for maybe 15, 20 minutes, we're going to open the floor for questions from the audience. There's one guidance from the organizers that is when we introduce ourselves, so we try to avoid marketing our own firms. So thank you. So let's start with maybe from the far end. That's Michael. Oh, the far end. That'll be Robin. Yeah.
Hello, everyone. I know it's really an honor to join this panel with such a lot of big names. I only heard through the phone conversation or some kind of other meetings. My name is Robin Zhang from Tesla, and I joined Tesla about 14 months ago from Pfizer. So before Pfizer, from Pfizer Consumer Healthcare, and then I also previously worked at Pfizer prescription drug, and also worked for Bayer and worked for consulting firms and investment bank. And I was also a orthopedic surgeon, and then to get my PhD and MBA from US. Currently, I'm responsible for the Tesla's drug-related investment and also the business development and some kind of strategy. And recently, we just closed a deal with a French company, Pharnex, to licensing their orphan drug to treat the CMT1A disease in China, and as well as to set up another joint venture to develop the drug based on their GWAS system. So I think it's a very interesting topic because Tesla is very active in the drug licensing, license out investment, and cooperate with potential partners, and we have different investor arms, and then nice to join the panel, and then hope we have a nice discussion here.
Thank you, Robin. Ian?
Good morning, everyone. I'm Ian Weisenberg. I just need to say in the audience, rowdy people will be sent out there. No, please behave yourself back there. Just kidding. My background is finance, and I've been involved in doing business in China now for over a dozen or so years. Had the great opportunity working with Greg with ChinaBio for a number of years as well. Why am I on this panel? Been involved with a few interesting groups, particularly one private equity group that founded Biodura back in 2005, and many people don't know, but reacquired it 2 years ago, which we affectionately term Biodura 3.0. From a relevance standpoint, Biodura is doing some interesting stuff on a financing basis, and I think that'll be interesting as we discuss further in this topic. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Ben Lee. I'm with the industry. This year is my 23rd year. Actually, I'm just adjusting myself into my new role in the VC area for 1 month. So currently, I'm working with iBridge Capital. It's a VC company, VC fund, which is supporting the innovation and through the licensing and so on and so forth. Before that, I was with Sanofi for almost 6 years, responsible for Asia Pacific, external innovation, and partnering. And before that, I was consulting for a smaller company and also GSK, Eli Lilly, so on and so forth. I'm very glad to be in the panel.
Great, thank you. Karen?
Hi, my name is Karen Liu from ChinaBio Ventures Capital. We are a healthcare-only venture investment fund in China. We run both RMB and US dollar fund. Obviously, the RMB money tends to invest in deals in China or with a substantial China operation. And the US dollar part, we are increasingly active in overseas investment. And we are relatively new. We've only been 2 years old. This is my first healthcare-only, healthcare-focused venture fund. Previously, I've been active in China healthcare investing for about 10 years, but I was previously a healthcare partner in a generalist fund. And we've seen the development of healthcare entrepreneurship and the healthcare industry development in the past 10, 15 years. It's very dramatic. And glad to have the opportunity to discuss with my friends and fellows here. And
thank you, Karen. Michael.
Thank you. Michael Chen from Merck Serono. So I'm biochemistry by training, and basically working for Merck as external innovation, head of external innovation of China, but also looking after the Asia and the Pacific areas. So from my perspective, I will be interested in innovative assets, technologies, mostly focusing on oncology, immunology, and IO fields. And obviously, we do have commercial requirement for late stage of other general, medicines, and we also have fertility drugs, which is quite world-leading products as well. So before then, I was working for WuXi and then a MedImmune in the UK. Then before that, I was a small company spin-off from UCL and School Pharmacy, Spergen on ADC. So the reason why I joined this panel, I guess, is some sort of feedbacks or how multinationals are saying this kind of trends going on in China and outside China. Thank you.
Great, thanks, Michael. So a little bit on myself. Before the session started, I actually heard a comment from the audience that many of the speakers today seem to have a lot of degrees. So PhD, JD, MBA, and so on, MD. And so my response was that that only meant that some of us had to spend many years at a school. That's all. And unfortunately, I was one of those victims. So I got my PhD in life science in the mid-90s, and then late 90s, I also went to B school for my business education. And afterwards, spent some years in working on the industry side, pharma, biopharma, and then the most recent 12, 13 years working as a management consultant, mostly focusing on drug commercialization, investment evaluation, personalized medicine, and strategic decision making. So it's really my honor here to moderate this panel. I do represent a company called Global Data. Since I'm not advised not to market my companies, I'd like to just quickly point to my colleagues in the audience, Olivia and Anthony. Hopefully they can do some marketing afterwards. Okay. So with that, so you can see that we actually have a very well selected panelist with two of our guests coming from the actual more traditional VC investing sector, and two from industry, pharma, biopharma companies. And actually one from Bioduro, that's somewhat of kind of unconventional investor in the landscape. So if we think about the life cycle of a biotech company, starting from very beginning, all the way through a fully integrated biopharma company. One would think that one would start with some kind of seed angel fund, then gradually raise multiple rounds mostly through private placement. And also along the way, there may be certain partnership that one can form with biotech pharma companies. And then at some point, if one is successful, one could take the company public. And then you can go from there. So we can see that for the purpose of our discussion, I can see that we would be mostly focusing on the development stage of the companies, I suppose. as opposed to some of the largest companies in the world, the Pfizer's, the BMS in the world, right? They would fund their drug development mostly through their own internal resources, right? So we'll be focused on the former. So with that in mind, that I would like to ask for our speakers that and encourage everyone to share opinion from your lenses. What are the key trends and the challenges when you are investing in drug development in China? Anyone like to start?
I'll start, not that I have anything sage to say about that particular, from the science standpoint. As regards our particular strategy around evaluating opportunities, clearly, oncology and immuno-oncology is still key to everything that everyone looks at right now from a activity level. With respect to how we look at things, we clearly look at things that are in our purview of what our expertise and platform offer. And frankly, the earlier upstream, the better for us, because then we can add value. I want to take just a minute to say, okay, Sean, you mentioned we're unconventional. We absolutely are unconventional. We are part of a private equity group based out of San Diego, but our operations are principally out here in Beijing and Shanghai. But we do have an investment arm, and if we identify opportunities, we will make we'll look at that in serious detail to evaluate whether we want to invest in that particular through our investment arm. But as far as trends in China go, clearly over the last couple of years, the market has shifted away from the generics to more innovative drug opportunities. And frankly, we had a discussion a little earlier about, well, it doesn't necessarily have to be innovative in China, but it needs to be developed in China for the China market and potentially worldwide. So it has definitely changed. The environment has changed. We've seen that as a discovery engine that the Chinese clients are moving pretty quickly into developing opportunities that are for the worldwide market. Therapeutically, I'm not skilled in that regard.
Okay, well, I think that the biggest challenge for us as healthcare investors, you essentially have to have a crystal ball for the next 8 to 10 years. Because for health technologies, whether it's a drug assets or a technology platform you develop along the way, you're stuck with it for at least 8 to 10 years, at least for the entrepreneurs. If you don't position your platform, your assets to be advanced enough for the day after tomorrow, not just tomorrow. By the time tomorrow comes, you're already obsolete. It's no longer well valued when tomorrow comes. So that's a big challenge. We see, people sometimes chase for what's sexy now, but bear in mind, a lot of people doing the same thing. So we constantly challenge or ask ourselves, what is really needed for the day after tomorrow? Is this technology or asset still advanced enough to be valued or to be sort of treasured by the big farmers, or to be competitive enough after 4 or 5 years of development when you actually come to get some visibility? So it's hard to have this kind of crystal ball, but that's one of the big challenge.
Okay, since I've been with the VC only for 1 month, so that from our perspective, if I put my multinational company's head and as well as my VC head, I see the trend in the past 5 years has a significant go towards the innovation. As many colleagues said, that under the pressure of central government, as well as the global trend in terms of innovation, I certainly see in China, at least in the life science industry, biotech industry, that the innovation has become very, very popular. But the problem is that from multinational standpoint of view, when we look at in the China biotech industry, multinational, they have a predefined standard, high quality. You need to competing with those in the US, in the Europe. So when you take those criteria, come to China, looking for opportunity, you find it's extremely difficult to identify the same quality of first-in-class opportunity in China to supporting the global pipeline of all these multinational companies. So that's become the challenge. All these opportunities are rare, and it is difficult to get to that point. However, now if I'm standing on the VC standpoint of view, that the situation I found is just totally different. Before I found it's so hard to identify those opportunities. Now I found there's many of those opportunities be available from the VC standpoint of view. So we are looking for first-in-class in the global level, but it doesn't have to be fit into multinational to say certain type of disease criteria. Secondly, you always has a China market as a backup. So even though I cannot be the first one in the world in the type of asset, how about if I'm the first one in China? It is also first in class or best in class in China. You are in the #1 position in China. From VC standpoint of view, that is feasible. But that what probably may not be feasible when you're in the multinational. Say you cannot just have a China rights. Of course, China market is big enough, but certainly we hope have some sort of bigger market. So from different standpoint of view, you will see the innovation in China fit into the different category. So in general, I always feel that for the VC standpoint of view, there's quite a bit of innovative opportunity. That's where you see many the money flooding into China VCs. Lots of hot money around. That probably reflect one of those situations. But the challenge for the multinational, I think that is a challenge is still there, but I think it's getting better, and the China situation getting better and better.
Yeah, just trying to add on a little bit from Ben's, and also thanks for Ben's previous and first bit introduction about what's global pharma's requirements and what really draws global pharma's attention. And I think yes, the bar is high in a way for really competing with what's going on in the way of innovation, competing with the U.S. and Europe and companies in the way for the new products or targets. However, I think this trend is actually going on more and more in China, and especially the translational medicine is going up. So, and I always say the universities in China has nothing different comparing with university from the rest of the world. So it will be the same quality stuff coming out, or same innovative potential assets coming out from Chinese universities. So probably, I mean, if you agree, so with the attention from investment also sort of pushing towards a bit more early stage from the universities, from translational medicine perspective, to make them become more, innovative and investable. However, I think the other good point that the global pharma might see China as the very niche or very new technologies that not even being very populated in the rest of the world. So, for example, cell therapies or gene therapies, and so on. So those things actually, maybe China now is actually building up this power, and it's just waiting for the right time to become like really booming. And would multinationals start, see this and also do something? It's a question mark, but I'm sure sooner or later it's going to come out very soon. And I do see a lot of many multinationals is doing something like that to really use China as a big power in the next few years to really getting these new technologies, really applied. So probably it's another point. So yeah, probably gonna come more points later on from the multinational bit. Thanks.
Great. Thank you, Michael.
Okay, so as they made a great points, and from my perspective, because we haven't, I think my team has reviewed kind of almost 100 business cases in the past 14 months, And then so basically right now, I think the biggest, more technically, the biggest challenge for us is the valuation. And then I think that's, I mean, everybody who right now working in China healthcare investment part, I think the valuation is a challenging. I mean, how to justify this kind of like the price tag of each case is really difficult for actually for the investment firms and as well as even for as strategic investors. I mean, that's actually, I think from two major reasons. Why is the policy's uncertainty? Because if we, back to 24 months ago, you asked me about the China's healthcare policy related to the regulatory, related to the commercialization, reimbursement. I will give you some kind of relative negative feedback. We'll see, the drug approving process kind of like much longer compared with global standards. And the reimbursement environment was horrible. The drug list hadn't been renewed for 7 years. So, but in the 12 months ago, I would say it's more like neutral. But right now, if you ask me the same question, I probably will give you some relative positive side. Say, in the past 3 or 6 months, you can see a lot of change in the CFDA part. And then, but that's created a big issue is because people have different perspective about the CFDA, about the reimbursement list. And then that create a big gap about valuation, especially, when a founder come to you, say, my company worth $500 million US, but based on the model we calculate, it's probably only kind of like 1/4 of the valuation. How to justify that part is still quite challenging situation for us. The second part is the ecosystem. I think the drug development, especially for the innovation, for the new drug development, should come from a well-established ecosystem. That ecosystem you can find in San Diego, you can find it in San Francisco, you can find it in Boston. I think you also can find it in Cambridge, England. But it's still, I think there is some ecosystem right now in Suzhou, in Shanghai, but still in China, this is a relatively very early stage. That means you don't have a lot of qualified professionals to run the global standard clinical study. You don't have enough CROs can help you to evaluate the project and then to help you to eventually launch the product in the market. And also the problem is even for the commercialization and then people have a different perspective about so how the drug going to in the market the performance. A lot of what we see are called the China new drug or the Chinese new drug was kind of like try to take this arbitration time between the global launch timeline and the China launch timeline. That kind of like right now that's part of the probably should be gone in next 1 or 2 years, because in the past months the CFD, the new rule really kind of like shaking up the entire the industry environment. So I sincerely hope in the future when the new company think about their strategy, think about their the products, they can put them in the global perspective, not just for China. Because probably for the innovative drug in China, for China, this story is no longer kind of like can add a lot of value to the valuation. So I hope, because I know there is a lot of small companies in this conference, and then people should back to the earth. And then meanwhile, also the unprofessional investors, like the hot money, and create a lot of bubbles in this industry, like right now the biosimilar. Right now, like the manufacturer of the CMO capacity about the biological drugs, we already can see that it is kind of like a bubble already coming out. So how eventually this kind of investment landed, that is will be a very interesting question for us to observe.
Working? It is? Okay. Well, thanks everyone. That was very good views that you share with everyone. So the next set of questions is that from what you focus on in investing in drug development in China. What are you looking for from your target companies?
I think what we are currently looking for, I'm more on the, now just, I would say probably just a new trend in terms of the VC. Now there's in the conventional VC, there's only do investment. Now there's many VC that try to copy third rock model. They have a investment arm and there's an operation arm. So I'm kind of more in the operation arm, which basically invest by licensing, creating a company. So this is a slightly different shift from the conventional VC model. So from that aspect, what I'm looking for, we are looking for is more innovative products. Also, Rowan also said that the valuation of those assets from China is, one thing is in terms of first class globally, it's not that many. Secondly, the price sometimes could be very high. I remember 10 years ago when we do the licensing from Chinese Academy of Sciences from Shanghai. The price was so low, which is so unbelievable low. But now it's go to opposite way. It's some asset, innovative asset, could be very high. So therefore, I think our strategy now is more licensing from the global partner. Hopefully develop a more established package for certain asset. So basically, also the valuation is, I think, is reasonable also in the industry industry recognized level. So So what also we are looking for the pipeline from the preclinical stage to up to the clinical stage, phase 1, phase 2, even phase 3 is okay, but more on the innovative side. So we are classic VC in terms of the taking the risk, early phase of an asset instead of like a PE model, more established proof of concept kind of asset. So we are waiting to take a risk by looking for a partnership with, of course, global multinational companies or established biotech companies. So that's the general strategy.
I think we're very well aligned in our focus as far as investment goes or therapeutic opportunities. Innovative is key for us. As far as the stage of development, it's further upstream, the better. Have a starting point, and then we can take it all the way through. From an investment standpoint, as a private equity group, the Biotech Investment Group traditionally has held majority stake in most of our companies. As we've evolved over the last couple of years with Bioduro, we have a new investment arm called BioArtis that is not your traditional VC by any stretch of imagination. It's opportunistic. When a client comes to us and looking for opportunities that we see that the technology or the target is unique, then we will be voicing our interest in investing alongside. But we're not looking like a VC typically is looking for majority stake. We're simply looking to advance this technology through to a clinical candidate, and then perhaps a little beyond there, we will invest further dollars in that. But our investment strategy is in cash and in kind. But certainly from an innovative standpoint, that's the differentiator for us. Not me toos, not me betters, but simply just innovation, new NCs.
I'll also add to that and echo Ben and Ian's comments. We're also looking for the truly innovative at a global standard innovation. We're not restricted to investing only in China, and instead we're looking increasingly outward. In fact, it's my personal view. I think some of the really 0 to 1 innovations, the groundbreaking ones, are from the US. We have good access to the US, especially to the Bay Area. We hope to increase our access to Europe as well, but right now we're very limited. We do drug, device, and diagnostics. For drugs, this is probably more pertinent to the audience here. I will also add, in addition to being first in class, we would generally prefer assets or companies that has a continuous source of, or a deep insight in the biology. So I would prefer not to be a single asset or just, somewhere got an asset and develop it. I would prefer the company to have, like a spring, to have continued source of innovation, because the founding scientists have deep insight on the particular biology they're targeting. That kind of companies generally can have a pipeline of drug candidates instead of one or two. And our sweet spot is relatively early investment from preclinical, perhaps to phase 1. Occasionally we do early phase 2. And our preference is also, in addition to investing in a US company, we work with the US company to develop their China assets. Like Ben mentions, we also have an operational team. In fact, myself and a few of my partners, collectively, we have been serial entrepreneurs. We've collectively built up 5 companies in the past. I was one time an internet entrepreneur. My partner, Jin Lee, was a serial entrepreneur for 3 companies. So we have an operational team. We can actually take their China rights and move it forward, and we can separately fund their China development through our R&D fund. So that will be our sweet spot.
So I'll just say, come from my perspective from the multinationals, and what Merck's looking at would be something really fitting of a pipeline. So, and I think Merck these days is getting quite interesting, because we're trying to make ourselves more in a novel drug company. So means innovation again. So just echo everybody was saying, but we focus very much on very strict disease areas like oncology, immunology, and immuno-oncology. So, and I think it is very interesting if we could say, biotechs or small companies that could, work together with us, and some sort of new niche technologies that we could incorporate into our pipeline, and even discovery technologies that we could use to build up more stronger, technology or drug assets later on. We would really like to work together, by all sorts of ways, not just investment, licensing, or co-development, or all sorts of, business opportunities. And I say that could be the most, either or opportunity to work together. And from that point on, really, I think Merck actually works quite simply to define our scope very clearly as well. So, for example, oncology, we're not going to work on everything. So we actually make very strictly on things like DNA damage repair. You can see the deals we did with Vertex on, cancerogenic signaling, cancer metabolism, tumor plasticity, ADC. So very defined. So I think it's probably nicer for companies that do talk to us and understanding what's really the innovation clusters that we are building on. We're doing the same thing for IO. We're doing the same thing for immunology. So very defined. So then, I'm sure other companies doing the same thing. So then, if we know each other, then we won't miss each other, and we get to the click, then we could really building something on top of it. I just talked to some company in the morning, which is quite nice. That could find some really sweet spots, and it could be very easy for me to really, building up this kind of collaboration ways to report to have global, pipelines, global R&D, and to really push this on, because it's all making sense. But if it's nothing, we could really to say we can work together, although it could be something really innovative, but we can't handle it, and we're not experts on it. On the other hand, again, from the disease area, from the innovation clusters, there are technologies beyond the current approach, as just mentioned previously. So then those things, maybe not R&Ds, but our ventures probably going to have a look at, because that would be the next generation of medicine or therapeutics, like cell therapies or something I mentioned. So then we're not experts on it, but who knows, maybe a couple years later, it become very powerful things, and we don't want to miss out. So we could start something early as well in a sort of innovative way and investment as well. Together with all the partners from VCs, I guess, will be something quite interesting. Just nevertheless, you don't want to miss the commercial part as well. So also probably know what's our commercialized products, and your innovation or your current work could also help the commercial products to be selling in a better way, and that's something I'm sure we'll be very keen on as well. So and just overall, I think know each other better, and then get the better points to talk together. So that's from my part, I think.
As Michael said, as a company, definitely we are looking for the product strategic fit. So that means is your strategic TA area, and then also maybe in the the cutting edge manufacturer like the sector. So if you are interested about the Tesla's strategic therapeutic area, you can talk to me later. I don't need to promote here. And then, but from my standpoint, is not necessary. We are really looking for the innovation, for the pure just for innovation, that kind of project. Because from my standpoint, when I'm looking for a new project, I'm looking for the differentiate points. So that means you are necessarily not, because to be honest, as a trained physician, currently the new technology or the new medication, the incremental benefit are getting thinner and thinner compared with the SOC currently we use in most kind of like therapeutic areas. And then the new drug only can add 1 month or 2 months for the cancer patient's life. I don't think that, at least for me, I don't think that is worth $1 million or million RMB for that kind of price. So we are invested in something like definitely still the oncology is our strategic importance sector. And meanwhile, we are also looking for, if with new technology, you can produce a current drug with much lower cost, with much higher, better quality. That's definitely is some area we are looking for. So we also use the investment to think about Tesla has a very strong commercial team in China. So that's another part is for us to looking for the partnership. So our strategy, one sentence is in China, we are looking for the product in China for global, and we are also looking for the product in global for China. So for the in China for global part, for any kind of a local company, if our local partner, if you don't have the plan, you don't have the strategy to launch this product, or to at least find a partner to launch this product in US or in Europe, probably I'm not interested at all. That in China for China part is not my strategic focus. And then also for global in China, because we understand the Tesla compared with like Pfizer, Merck, we still kind of like a kid in this pharmaceutical industry. And then we are looking for definitely global partner. We also understand that it's hard for us to find a true innovative product in Boston area, in San Francisco area. So we are working with the top investment funds from US to reach out to this asset. And then at least Tesla can be a part of their story, their China story, because thanks for the CFD's new guidelines and the policies, I think China market become more and more important for any innovative drug. So each new drug company, they're probably looking for the China story to add value to their product. So we are probably one of the best choice for this kind of companies.
So a lot of us talk about partnering with another company. So if we look at other biotech companies in the world, partnering with another bigger biotech or pharma companies is usually is often a very important way to either to attract equity investment or non-dilutive funding, right? So for a Chinese drug developer, in your opinion, when would be the best time to consider such a partnership, right? So that it's not too early. So you sell yourself out too early, and how best to attract a potential partner. And then in doing that, what do you see are the common challenges or common mistakes and lessons learned?
Well, I'll start the points when it's best to work with maybe multinationals. So for me, I look at projects mostly in the early stage. So, and I obviously from an innovative point, we don't want miss it when it's getting too late, or and trying to understanding them from beginning. So when I say early stage, it would be something with good animal model. So with best to have efficacy and safety profiles ready, and that's at the time we could actually evaluate these projects. But obviously projects at clinical stage, pre or post POC, that would be quite valuable for us to understanding the possibility for continue this project. So obviously that's would be the project's best time to really go and look for partnering opportunities. But in general, I think the time when they have a good animal model and a good MOA understanding of the projects could be the starting point. But obviously, with more mature company, you might want to develop further to really build up this value of the project. Then you do the partnering. So that's up to your BD colleagues, I guess. So, but in general, early to the animal model stage.
I could echo Michael's comments too. From our perspective, obviously the partnering is the later the better. That gives us more opportunity to build value through our engine. So clinical candidate stage is usually the stage at which we feel is the right stage for partnering. I will add though, just to flip it around a little bit on talking about MNCs, big pharma. We actually have a deal with a big pharma company that's came to us to develop an asset for them. As Michael, as I'm sure you know, there's plenty of pharma companies. Most of them have assets that they can't, while they have boatloads of cash, they still have to focus on where their expertise and where they have to focus on those particular programs. So there's clearly a lot of opportunities within pharma that there's assets sitting on the shelf there that need to be developed. So we've actually been approached by one of the largest pharma companies to take a couple of the assets and develop them to a particular stage. So we're very excited about that collaboration, but that is an opportunity for us to take on the risk and for downstream rewards there. So it goes both ways.
For us, I think I would see probably from the preclinical, if you start to making a preclinical package, I think that's a good starting point. Of course, if you feel that if you have a very strong package for in vivo efficacy, that's also good. Then probably sweet spot is from that to, of course, the later the better, but probably the valuation is going to extremely high later too. So I would say probably from preclinical to phase 1. I think if you start the phase 1, that's also good, and also if you complete the phase 1, that would be even better. So I think it's all depending on the valuation of your asset and also the mechanism of action, whether or not that you are in this position. What my preferred asset position is in the global level, you are number 2 or number 3. If number 1 is for smaller companies to challenge. So you'd better have someone in front of you so you know where to go, to follow. So, but your position in China in the number 1 position, hopefully. So that's then it's depending on the asset, in the preclinical asset up to clinical phase 1. I think that would be a good spot.
Just an interesting comment that when I heard what Ben just said. Actually, when I was working at some major pharma company, they like to say that we like to become the best number 2. So anyone like to add more?
I would say we're a little bit similar. We prefer to work with candidate-declared assets. We don't want to get involved in the discovery stage, but once it's candidate declared, meaning it's ready for IND enabling studies or already entered, filed IND or even starting phase 1, we can work with those assets to parallel promote that in China, and we will separately fund that in China. We believe this is a way of creating additional value for the parent company. Also, increasingly, I find China and the US assets, there will be separate exits. That's my view. For China assets or for US assets, when you get to POC or past phase 2, or even at commercialization stage, it'll be very much like Japan. It's a separate market, separate commercial consideration, possibly selling, sales and marketing by different pharma companies, depending on their local market needs. So I think in general, in going forward, I think China, Japan, Europe, and US, these are the 4 major commercialization geographics to consider. Obviously, we're more familiar with China, and for the truly innovative assets, if they're global facing, the Western market rights will probably, most likely, will need to be partnered out.
Great. We have a lot of interesting topics to cover, but I do like to save some time for the audience to participate. So at this point, I'd like to open up the floor to invite questions from the audience. Gentleman in the back.
Can you hear me? Thank you for that. That was very, very timely and very interesting. I would like to ask if any of you have had recent experience with money from China being invested in the United States. Because I've heard via a couple people that it's increasingly difficult for Chinese funds to be invested into companies in the States. Anybody have that experience? And I'm told that it could be a lot to do with the size of the deal. But any comments?
Yes. So we have a company, one of our portfolio companies, a company called BioAtla in San Diego. It was founded back in 2006. It was kind of founded alongside Bioduro. Evolved over 10 years and became a drug development company, big in antibodies. But from an investment standpoint, they have certainly climbed the ladder quite rapidly over the last 18 months or so, and most recently a group by the ChinaBio and another group called Santerra put a pretty large block of cash into BioAtla. The caveat there, though, Paul, is that it was done before these regulations changed, the Forex. But what remains true is as long as there's a real company with a real development strategy, with a real opportunity, those opportunities are still available. It's just a little bit more difficult. Going through the process, in some ways, going through Shanghai, through Waigaoqiao, the free trade zone, setting a company through that enables those funds to translate through to US investments. But those deals are still being done. We still get approached, and they talked about other companies looking to invest, but it is certainly a little bit more challenging, I would say.
And I'll add to that, historically, we were able to do that even with RMB money, but right now, after the clampdown, basically if you want to invest outside, you have to have US dollar already outside, meaning you have to have a separate US dollar fund. But some of our portfolio companies, they have a cross-border operation. They operate both in China and in the US, and they have a substantial China operation, and some of these companies are able to attract a lot of investment from China, and they pay their regular US clinical trial bills, and that's okay. It's a little bit cumbersome, they still have to deal with the bureaucracies, but it's, that's totally fine. So these companies, if they have cross-border operations, that may be a good way to fund some of the overseas development.
Any additional questions? Anthony?
Thank you very much to the panel for a great session. I've seen in Singapore and Korea and Australia strengthening teams and commercial focuses by hospitals and universities and clinics and institutes. How would you say in China that can either be improved or kind of how commercially minded do you think that that kind of end of the innovation spectrum are really focusing on in terms of manpower approach, presence at events like these and so on?
Thank you. Anyone like to take a crack at it?
Yeah, actually, I just touched base on this topic with somebody yesterday, and yes, I think in general there's a gap in China for in academic assets or technologies transfer into industry and become more mature to apply to late stage. So I would think to really get that gap closed, there are good models coming from the other neighboring countries like South Korea and Singapore, who's doing really well actually. And I would think the approach would be coming not from multinational, but maybe the pharma and the governments locally could actually promoting those sort of activities in a way of funding or other sort of supports, or even make potentially maybe if large pharma, in a local large pharma that's interested in innovative projects, that rather than going outside the country to search and evaluate, maybe just look at the universities or academic institutions, just next to them, probably have something really good already, and you have these returnees now coming back from the famous universities globally back into China, setting up the good labs and doing translational medicines, might already have some things that ready to be take into pharma to really building on. So I think really the effort could be coming from that point, and then multinationals would probably coming from that stage, and when those assets become a little bit mature, and then getting on. Although we also, very actively looking at academic assets, but really it's a little bit gap between multinationals to know the culture much better than the local farmers really getting also the efforts and bringing them to the stage, and then we can work together from that point.
With my limited time with the VC, I found that it's difficult for VC to assess all these such an early opportunity. If you're for medical device, probably it's okay because of the technical hurdle probably not as high as in pharmaceutical. So VC is a place that hopefully you have a team already. You have the assets. You can go to a much more standard process, the package. For example, R&D enabling package. These are very standard things CRO can do. If you ask VC to evaluate such an early asset that you don't even know the quality of the data, even though they have in vivo data, you're not quite sure that the quality is there or not. So that's the challenge. If I put my multinational hat on, that I think for them it's much more feasible because of they can do a material transfer agreement and they validate your asset. For VC, they don't have a place to validate it. And also the expertise-wise, we don't have that expertise as a wide, available as in the pharmaceutical industry. So for that purpose, I would say it's much challenge for VC to look into such an early opportunity. So that's just my view.
Thank you.
Sorry, I forgot to say one more thing is, these days there is something else called open innovation, or innovation hubs that's organized by, initially organized by, I think, multinationals, but also local governments also quite supporting on these sort of things, and could bring the gap, between, academic and industry. So would be interesting if those things getting more promoted, and really, from Merck, German Merck, we do have other industry into like life science and performance material, those sort of things. So everything bring together, you could say this power getting more stronger rather than from one perspective. So maybe really looking at into open innovation and those sort of ideas could be another way to really accelerate the early stage ideas into assets.
Actually, now I have a question that I thought is very key to successful drug development. We all know that risk is is intrinsic to drug development. Everyone knows that there's no guarantee for any drug assets to be successful. There's a well-known level of PTRS statistically for every stage of drug development. So, knowing that, for the companies that you invest in, or for the fund or the company of yours that you work for, how would you advise your targeted company to best manage their own risk in their drug development programs? And from your own perspective, how would you manage your risk in your investment?
Probably more VC probably more look at more carefully because of the portfolio company that you need to balance. In my case at least, if I look at building the company, I think you also mentioned you want to have a portfolio of things. You don't want to just have a one asset. So if I invest in something which is in the phase 1/2, those kind of a asset, probably I would do 3 of those. So at that stage, success rate is about 30%. So if you have 3 assets around those in that platform, hopefully one can come up. So the balance, I think, is nothing wrong with I think this is pretty common that you need to have a certain portfolio to balance off the high risk. But for the partnering company, for my partners, whether or not they need to have those kind of asset, to me, I don't think that's important because I will license asset from this person to build up my portfolio. But for this person, whether or not she needs to have a own portfolio to balance her risk, then it's their story. So, but for us, certainly you need to have a platform. You need to have a certain portfolio to balance off the.
So for us, we are looking for the company really focus. So either you focus on one strategic areas like cancer, diabetes, cardiovascular disease, and build up some kind of asset around that kind of key your focus. And I think that it will balance some risk about the company. Meanwhile, and we're also looking for early stage company we are working on, we're also looking for the person, the founders, the key person. Be honest, we don't like the people, the company with the CEOs or founders presenting in every kind of meeting, all the news, and every day is kind of like in the pharma circle, that kind of a newsletter or something. We think that is not really the company going to do excellent R&D. And we find that a lot of company we do like is the founders, they are low-key person. They understand their science very well, and then they focus to try to very hard to bring their asset to the market. And at Tesla, we have invest money, and then we also can leverage our partners' money to do the investment. Meanwhile, also we are able to provide excellent commercialization platform for this company. So we are hoping find this kind of company is totally complementary to each other, and then we can help them to make them a great company in the future, as well as to benefit Tesla itself.
Yeah, on our partner company, I think this is something that's been reiterated a number of times. It's the people and it's the science. Make sure you can work with the people and the science. So I can't really tell from our partners' perspective as to how to manage their risk. Suffice it to say that identify the right partner. And it works both ways. And as we say as investors or as partners, we always look at the people and the science. The same thing should be true for the other company. From our perspective, Biodura, Biotis, or the Biotech Investment Group, managing our risk is one of obviously understanding our platform and our capacity and ability to deliver. So number of programs, we're looking to the same 10% in the earlier stage is the 10% ratio. So getting 10 programs and hoping one of them will at least be successful. So nothing different there.
Excellent discussion, and time flies. So I think we have time for one last precious question from the audience, hopefully. In that case, let's give a round of applause to thank our panelists.